Hello, friends! Today's the day. Well, not as you're seeing this, but as I'm recording this, that Fields of Mistria has officially released in 1.0. This update brings the game's main story to completion, introduces proposals and marriage, adds new town quests, more customization, achievements, and so much more. Because of this, there's no better time than now to start a brand new adventure. Now, you've probably noticed something. I already have over 300 hours in Fields of Mistria currently. I've explored the mines, rebuilt the farm, and fallen completely in love with this world. But with the release this big, I didn't want to just jump into an old save. I wanted to experience everything the way a brand new player would. Meeting everyone again, rebuilding the farm from the ground up, and discovering everything 1.0 has to offer from the very beginning. So grab your favorite snack, get comfy, and let's head to Mistria. Our journey to Mistria begins at a bridge that's definitely seen better days. Thankfully, we're greeted by a friendly face almost immediately. This is Baylor, one of the town's merchants. And tell me I'm not the only one who thinks he looks a little bit like Hal. Thankfully, our Hal lookalike is kind enough to help us safely across the broken bridge before welcoming to Mistria. He then leads us through town and out towards the old farm we've been promised in exchange for helping with Mistria's restoration. Welcome to Crescent Hollow. Waiting for us at the farm is Island, who's here to show us around. And well, it's safe to say the place has seen better days. But maybe the house will be better? Nope. The house has also seen better days. Still, every great farming adventure has to start somewhere. Debris can be cleared, fields can be replanted, and houses can be renovated. Before long, we'll have this place feeling like home. For now, though, there's not much else we can do. After enjoying a warm bowl of soup generously provided by Adeline, we crawl into bed and call it a night. Tomorrow marks our very first day in Mistria. We've got a neglected farm to restore, new neighbors to meet, a whole town waiting to be explored, and I can't wait to see where this adventure takes us. We wake up bright and early for our very first day in Mistria, and Celine is already outside waiting to welcome us properly. She introduces herself and gives us a hoe, which I'm sure has absolutely no subtext whatsoever, and some tulip seeds to help get us started. Before we can get too far, Hayden comes galloping onto the farm and nearly kills us. Thankfully, he seems appropriately sorry about our near-death experience and makes up for it with a watering can and some turnip seeds. So now equipped with everything we need and having narrowly survived our first morning, we get our first crops into the ground. With that taken care of, we head north to town to find Adeline. She introduces us to the town request board, which we'll be using quite a bit during our time here, before giving us our very first quest. Meet everyone. Alright, time to make some friends. First, we meet Holt, the owner of the general store, and his wife Nora, who's also the head of Mistria's Chamber of Commerce. We meet Raina and Josephine before getting absolutely interrogated by Maple, who has approximately 1 million questions for us. Yes, we lived in the capital. No, we did not meet the royal family. Next is Dell, who casually informs us that apparently there's a monster living on our farm. Cool. Good to know. We continue making our way around town, meeting Luke and Hemlock before finding Reese. Then there's Ulrich, who immediately tells us he hopes we can be friends. Ulrich, I would also love to be friends. And then there's March, who is mean to me. But like, hey. Moving on, we meet Valen before making our way over to Juniper, who immediately reminds me of Mistress 9 from Sailor Moon. And more importantly, Dozy. Look at him, the bestest boy. We continue our introductions with Landon, Elsie, and Terithia before meeting the most important resident of Mistria, Henrietta, a most regal chicken. Finally, we meet Errol, Mistria's newly appointed museum curator, who asks us to keep the museum in mind whenever we find anything interesting during our adventures. And since we've already gathered quite a few flowers while running around town, we might as well start now. We donate everything we've collected and manage to complete our very first museum set. With everyone officially met, it's time to head back to Adeline and turn in our quest. Our reward? Potatoes. So naturally, we grab our potatoes and immediately run all the way back to Crescent Hollow to get them in the ground. And apparently, we've done enough farming today to earn our very first farming level. With the crops watered and daylight quickly disappearing, I spend what's left of the evening clearing some of the weeds and debris around the farm with my sword. And while I'm out here, I think I may have found that monster Dell was talking about. The next morning, we're woken up by Island attempting to chop down a tree, which just so happens to be the same tree we found our mysterious monster hiding behind last night. Sir, it is way too early for this much noise. Apparently, Island isn't having much luck, so he hands the axe over to us and lets us take a whack at it. And hidden behind the tree, we uncover a statue of Caldaris, the mythical guardian of Mistria. Caldaris. Interesting. He's looking a little rough after everything that's happened, so we do our best to put him back together, which mostly involves sticking his head back on. Island lets us keep the axe before heading off, leaving us to get started on our farm chores. We water all of our crops and then immediately put our shiny new axe to work, clearing as many trees and sticks as our stamina will allow. Checking our mail, we have a letter from Errol asking us to stop by the museum, so once our chores are finished, we head into town. Along the way, we pick up a few new requests from the board, and more importantly, our very first strawberry seed. We also run into Dell, who wants to know if we found any monsters yet. Well, about that. Before heading to the museum, we track down Ulrich because he has something very important for us. A pickaxe. And he's willing to give it to us under one condition. We have to give his little brother March a chance because apparently he doesn't have very many friends. I wonder why. With our pickaxe acquired, it's finally time to make our way over to the museum. Errol gives us a proper introduction to how donations work, and for joining Mistria's Historical Society, we even receive a small stipend. Naturally, this means I immediately head over to the dig site to see what I can find. We dig up some of our very first artifacts and, of course, bring them straight back to the museum to donate. But while I was inside, I noticed something. The exhibits aren't roped off anymore. During early access, we couldn't actually walk through these areas, so naturally, I had to run around and explore everything. There is still one section that's blocked off though, so I'm very curious to see if the story will eventually let us find out what's hiding back there. After satisfying my curiosity, we make one more stop at the general store to pick up some cabbage seeds before heading home to Crescent Hollow. We get our new crops planted and spend the rest of the evening clearing as many rocks from the farm as our remaining stamina will allow. It's been a pretty productive second day, but when we finally crawl into bed for the night, something strange happens. We dream of Caldaris. He tells us that he doesn't know how long he's been asleep, his memories are foggy, but he can feel that something in Mistria has changed. Magical essence has begun to flow through the land once again. He asks for our help gathering this essence and offering it to his shrine here on the farm. And to help us do that, Cal bestows upon us the ability to sense and collect it ourselves. Before the dream ends, he asks us to come speak with him at his shrine in the morning. So, I guess we have a date with a dragon. Day 3 begins with a letter from Adeline letting us know that it's time to start working on repairs to the bridge. But first, farm chores. We get all of our crops watered and of course stop by to say good morning to Cal. Priorities. With that taken care of, we spend most of the morning gathering as much wood and stone as we can around Crescent Hollow for the bridge repairs. Once we've thoroughly exhausted both ourselves and the farm, we head into town. We make a quick stop at the request board to collect a few rewards before hopping over to the bridge to see how close we are to finishing the repairs. And we are so close. We're only a few pieces of wood and stone short. Unfortunately, our stamina has other plans. With absolutely no energy left to swing an axe or pickaxe, there's not much more we can contribute today. So instead of passing out somewhere in the woods, which would probably make a fantastic first impression on our new neighbors, we spend the rest of the evening doing a little foraging on our way back to Crescent Hollow. Not the most eventful day in Mistria, but we made some good progress. Tomorrow, hopefully, we'll finally get this bridge repaired. We wake up on day 4 to the wonderful sound of rain, which means no watering crops today, and more importantly, we can use all of that precious stamina to gather the last of the wood and stone we need to finish repairing the bridge. We spend the morning collecting what we're missing before heading into town, doing a little foraging along the way. While we're out, we run into Luke, who gives us our very first bug net, which means we can officially start terrorizing the local bug population for museum donations. We also stop by to wish Reese a happy birthday and give him some wood. Happy birthday, Reese. I promise we'll get better at gift giving eventually. With that taken care of, we finally make our way to the bridge and drop off the last of the wood and stone. Everything is ready, so we let Adeline know it's officially time to rebuild. And just like that, Mistria has its bridge back. And more importantly, repairing it means the Saturday market can finally return, which gives us something new to look forward to this weekend. With our big project for the day officially complete, there's only one thing left to do: catch bugs. So we spend the rest of this rainy evening running around Mistria with our new net, catching whatever we can find before eventually making our way back to Crescent Hollow and calling it a night. Tomorrow, we get to see what our newly repaired bridge has opened up for us. Day 5 starts with a letter from Raina inviting us to stop by the Sleepin' Dragon Inn tonight. Apparently, every Friday night, the residents of Mistria gather at the inn to unwind together, and obviously, we're going. But we have an entire day to fill before then. We've finally saved up enough money to buy ourselves a fishing rod, so we head to the beach to pick one up. Now that we can fish and catch bugs, we spend most of the day wandering around Mistria, collecting whatever we could find until it's time to finally head to the inn. And I absolutely love this. Everyone has broken off into their own little groups for the evening. Island, Celine, Adeline, Baylor, and Holt are sitting around and playing what is essentially Mistria's version of D&D. And I want to play. Please let me play. You don't have a sorcerer. I can be that for you. At a second table, Terithia, Nora, Errol, Hayden, Reese, and Ulrich are playing cards. Ulrich has absolutely no idea how the game works, and somehow he's winning. Then we find March, who's had a little bit to drink and is hanging out with Landon, Elsie, Valen, and Juniper. And apparently, all it takes for March to be nice to us is alcohol. Good to know. Meanwhile, the kids are off in the corner, plotting to break into Baylor's room. You know, normal Friday night activities. Eventually, everyone starts wrapping up for the evening, but before we head home, we have a request from Juniper to turn in, which results in her asking to test one of her potions. This seems perfectly safe. It's not. Juniper nearly kills us. But on the bright side, we get 5 free visits to the bathhouse as compensation. And those are definitely going to come in handy later. With that little brush with death out of the way, we head back to Crescent Hollow to get ready for our first Saturday market tomorrow. But apparently, I wasn't quite ready to call it a night. Instead, I decide to use what little energy we have left to clean up some more of the farm. And I may have pushed things a little too far, because for the first time in this playthrough, we pass out. At least I get an achievement for it. Worth it? Despite our little incident last night, we wake up on day 6 with some pretty exciting news. We've officially reached level 10 and stone rank. We also have a mailbox absolutely stuffed with letters this morning, so clearly Mistria has plans for us today. But first, we have crops to water. Once our morning chores are taken care of, it's time to head into town for our very first Saturday market. We make our way around the market, introducing ourselves to all the visiting vendors and check in with Nora, who has a reward waiting for us. And while we're in town, I finally head to the general store and buy our first bag upgrade. Because I can't take it anymore. We need the inventory space desperately. With our pockets finally a little less cramped, we head over to the manor to find what Mistria needs from us next. This time, we're going to be helping rebuild the town's emergency stockpile. But there's something else I want to check on while we're out. The mines. So we need to head over to the museum to talk with Island and Errol about finally getting them opened. Errol is understandably a little hesitant and tells us that he'll only consider opening the mines once we've proven ourselves by reaching stone rank. Well, about that, we just reached stone rank, so I guess I'll see you both at the mines tomorrow. With another very busy day behind us, we spend what's left of the evening doing a little foraging before heading home to Crescent Hollow and getting some rest. Because tomorrow, we're going mining. Day 7 brings us another rainy morning, which I am so very happy to see. No watering means we get to save all of that precious stamina for our first trip into the mines. But before we head out, our first potatoes are finally ready to harvest. We collect them all, setting one aside for the museum, and then it's time. We're going mining. Our first trip goes pretty well. We start making our way underground, collecting plenty of new materials and plenty of new things for me to immediately hand over to the museum. We almost make it to level 5 until I accidentally climb back up the ladder on level 4. Well, I guess level 5 can wait. At least we didn't leave empty-handed. With our inventory full of new discoveries, we make our donations to the museum and eventually head back to Crescent Hollow for the night. And when Asteria finally falls asleep, she dreams again. But this time is different. This time, she isn't met by Caldaris. Instead, she feels a familiar presence. A little white cat named Artemis. When we wake up on day 8, it turns out our dream wasn't just a dream. Artemis is here! And since our little familiar has decided to join us at Crescent Hollow, we might as well put him to work. We assign Artemis to foraging duty, which leaves us free to spend most of our stamina today doing some fishing. While we're out, we have a couple of deliveries to make. Dozy needs a stick, so of course I'll bring Dozy a stick. He can have every stick I own. And Landon needs some wood, so we drop that off for him too. After that, we spend a little time wandering around Mistria, saying hello to a few of our new neighbors, before eventually making our way back to Crescent Hollow and calling it a night. A short day, but Artemis is home, and that's really all that matters. It's raining again on day 9, and by now we know what that means. It's a mines day. Before heading underground, though, we have a delivery to make. March requested some copper ore, so we stop by the forge to drop it off. And apparently, Adeline has decided that March hasn't exactly given us the warmest welcome to Mistria, because as punishment for being mean to us, she makes him teach us how to use the forge. Thank you, Adeline. With our new forging knowledge in hand, we grab a pocket full of trail mix and head back into the mines. Today, we're making it to level 5. Or at least, that was the plan. Turns out I did not bring nearly enough trail mix, so level 5 continues to elude us, but we do come home with plenty of new things to add to the museum collection. And more importantly, enough copper to put our new forging skills to good use. We smelt some copper bars and upgrade our pickaxe for the very first time. And naturally, I immediately want to see what our shiny new pickaxe can do, so we head out towards the eastern road where those giant rocks have been blocking our way since we arrived. Well, not anymore. With our upgraded pickaxe, we can finally break through and open the path towards the deep woods and the wishing well, which is very exciting. Except I've once again completely lost track of time, so we make a mad dash back to Crescent Hollow and manage to crawl into bed with literal seconds to spare. But we made it, and tomorrow, maybe we'll finally make it to level 5. Day 10 starts with a letter from Reese, who wants us to bring him 10 pieces of wood for a crafting lesson. Luckily, wood is one thing we have plenty of around Crescent Hollow, so we gather what we need and head into town. Reese teaches us the basics of crafting, opening up even more possibilities for what we'll eventually be able to do around the farm. While we're out, we also have a very important birthday to celebrate. It's Ulrich's birthday. And apparently, I've decided to continue our tradition of giving the people of Mistria whatever building materials I happen to have in my pockets. So, happy birthday, Ulrich. Here's a rock. It's the thought that counts, right? With our crafting lesson complete and our friendship with Ulrich hopefully surviving my terrible gift-giving abilities, we spend the rest of the day taking things easy. A little foraging, a little fishing, and then it's back to Crescent Hollow for a good night's sleep. 10 days down, and I think we're finally starting to settle into life in Mistria. It's raining again on day 11, which means we can skip watering our crops and use all that extra stamina to try our luck in the mines. And maybe, finally, make it to floor 5. Before we head out though, our cabbages are ready to harvest. I sell one and bring the other to the museum, which completes our spring crop bundle and rewards us with some more strawberry seeds. Then it's time. We're going back into the mines. And after 2 failed attempts, we finally make it to floor 5. 3rd time's the charm. With our long-standing feud with floor 5 officially behind us, we stop by the forge to turn some of our copper ore into bars and craft our very first piece of armor. Look at us, we're becoming a real adventurer. After that, it's time to head back towards Crescent Hollow and get those new strawberry seeds into the ground. Along the way, we stop to chat with Celine and officially reach our first heart with her. Our first little friendship milestone in Mistria. With the strawberries safely planted, we spend whatever energy we have left cleaning up around Crescent Hollow before finally heading to bed. Another rainy day, well spent. Our potatoes are ready on day 12. We harvest them and toss them straight into the shipping bin, which means by tomorrow we should have everything we need to complete Mistria's crop restock quest. With some empty fields to fill, we head into town to stock up on more seeds. But first, breakfast. We stop by the inn for our morning bowl of soup, where Josephine asks us if we'd mind bringing some coffee over to Adeline. Sure, we'll add that to today's ever-growing to-do list. From there, we head over to the general store, pick up the seeds we need, and make our coffee delivery to Adeline, which brings us up to one heart with her. Look at us! We're making friends! Then it's back to Crescent Hollow to get our new seeds into the ground before grabbing our gear and heading into the mines again. Now that we've finally conquered floor 5, let's see how much deeper we can go. We managed to make it all the way down to floor 8 before running out of stamina, so we call it there and head back into town to donate everything we managed to find along the way. And since it's Friday, you know where we're going. Back to the inn. It's been a week since our first Friday night here, and apparently everyone's been busy. Adeline has killed the king in their D&D game, so that's going well. Ulrich is still kicking everyone's butts at cards despite having absolutely no idea what he's doing. Juniper and Valen are still fighting over wine, and the kids are still plotting their way into Baylor's room. So, just another perfectly normal Friday night in Mistria. Day 13 starts with our usual morning routine. We water our crops and of course stop by to say hello to Cal. Today he's telling us how wonderful spring is, which is nice. I like our little morning chats. With the farm taken care of, we head into town to find Adeline and officially turn in the food reserves quest. We also have a request for Mary to hand in before making our way over to the inn where Josephine has invited us for a cooking lesson. Baylor and Celine are already there when we arrive, and eventually March decides to grace us with his presence. Apparently, he's late because he thought this was going to be a private cooking lesson. Sorry, March, you're cooking with the rest of us. Despite that little misunderstanding, we actually managed to make a pretty nice meal together, and Josephine gives us the recipe for vegetable soup so we can start making it ourselves. With our errands finished for the day, we head back to Crescent Hollow and spend the rest of the afternoon doing something I've been looking forward to: decorating. We've spent almost 2 weeks clearing this place out and getting ourselves established, so I think it's about time we finally start making it feel a little more like home. First order of business, moving the bed closer to the door, because considering how many times we've come sprinting home with seconds left before passing out, this is no longer an interior design decision. It's a survival strategy. We also used some of the things we picked up from Mary today to start putting together a little bathroom. There's still plenty I want to do around Crescent Hollow, but we're getting there. Little by little, this rundown old farm is starting to feel like ours. We wake up on day 14 to find Celine waiting outside our door. She's here to tell us about the upcoming Spring Festival, which will be happening this Wednesday. But before the festivities can begin, she needs our help. Every year, a special flower called the Breath of Spring begins appearing throughout Mistria, and the more we're able to collect before the festival, the better. Luckily, we don't have to go too far out of our way to find them. Breath of Spring can appear while we're doing all of our usual activities around the farm and town. So, of course, we agree to help. Now, I found that one of the best ways to gather a lot of Breath of Spring is in the mines, which means I know exactly what we're doing for the next 3 days. We're going mining. But first, crops. Once everything is watered, we grab our gear and head underground. And after finally conquering floor 5 a few days ago, today we managed to make it all the way down to floor 9 before running out of stamina. More importantly, we come out of the mines with 27 Breath of Spring, so I'd say our first day of festival preparations was pretty successful. We also have a nice pile of artifacts and other discoveries to bring over to the museum, and today's donations are enough to complete not one, but 2 more museum sets. The Upper Mines Insect set and the Upper Mines Artifact set. Look at us go! We're making progress! And with 1 day of Breath of Spring collecting down, we've still got 2 more mining days ahead of us before the festival. So, I lost the footage for day 15. Thankfully, you didn't miss too much. We finally made to floor 10 in the mines, heard a mysterious voice asking for help, which seems concerning. Cal visited us in our dreams again to gift us the full restore spell, and that's day 15. Moving on. It's raining again today. Perfect, because we're going straight back to the mines. Even better, we reached level 20 and Copper Town rank overnight, which means there's a shiny new stamina boost waiting for us in the rewards chest. But first, we have strawberries and turnips ready to harvest. With our crops taken care of, our increased stamina, and the full restore spell Cal gave us last night, I'm feeling pretty confident. Today, we're making it to floor 15. Before heading out though, we stop by Cal's statue to tell him about the strange voice we heard in the mines yesterday. He tells us that mortals once prayed to the dragons both above and below ground, but mortal lifespans aren't exactly long. So, what is waiting for us down there? I guess we'll find out soon enough. It's also March's birthday today, so we stop by the forge with a copper bar for him. Just because he's mean to us doesn't mean we have to be mean to him. Happy birthday, March. We also have a couple of things to take care of with Adeline before disappearing underground for the rest of the day. First, Mistria needs our help repairing the old mill, which is going to be incredibly useful once we start raising animals. We don't actually have any animals yet, but we'll get there. There's also the matter of setting up the new Lost and Found. And after the Dragon Guard volunteers to start gathering up everything the people of Mistria managed to lose around town, we're finally free to head to the mines. Armed with extra stamina, plenty of food, and our new spell, we make it to floor 15. Look at us go! On the way home, we stop by the forge to make some more copper bars and finally upgrade our sword, which is definitely going to come in handy as we continue making our way deeper underground. We also drop off some of the materials needed to repair the mill before heading back to Crescent Hollow. And after spending the last 3 days practically living in the mines, we managed to collect 64 Breath of Spring flowers. Not bad. Tomorrow, we finally get to put down the pickaxe for a little while and enjoy our very first spring festival. And I'm excited! It's finally time for our very first spring festival. Celine stops by Crescent Hollow first thing this morning to collect all the Breath of Spring we've gathered over the last few days. All 64 of them. So hopefully all that time we spent underground is about to pay off. But the festival doesn't start until later, so we take care of our crops and spend the rest of the morning clearing some more of Crescent Hollow. Then, of course, we stop by to say hello to Cal before finally making our way into town. It's festival time. Apparently, we're not wasting any time because as soon as we arrive, it's time to announce the results of the Breath of Spring competition. Coming in third, Errol. Second place goes to Celine, which means first place goes to us. Look at that. Our 3-day mining expedition paid off. With our first Mistrian festival and our first festival victory under our belt, we spend a little time enjoying ourselves before heading over to the baths for a well-earned soak. Then it's back to Crescent Hollow. Because apparently winning a festival doesn't mean the farm stops needing work. We're still gathering materials for the mill restoration project, so we spend the rest of our stamina clearing the farm and trying to collect the last of the wood that we need. And while we're working on making Crescent Hollow feel a little more established, we also plant a few of our first fruit trees. Slowly but surely, this place is really starting to come together. Not a bad way to spend our first spring festival. Day 18 starts with a few chores around Crescent Hollow before we get back into gathering wood for the mill restoration. We're getting close, but we're still a little short. So after a quick trip to the baths, it's back to chopping. While we're out, we make a stop at the general store to pick up some more seeds before heading home to get them in the ground. And with a little more work around the farm, we finally have all the wood we need. We also managed to catch a moth while we're out, so naturally that goes straight to the museum. And with that little moth, we complete the multi-season insect bundle. Another collection down. Since we've been spending so much time cleaning Crescent Hollow lately, our tools could also use a little love. So we head over to the forge and upgrade both our axe and watering can. Then it's finally time to find Adeline and finish this mill restoration project. We've gathered everything she asked for. We're ready to go. Except I forgot one tiny detail. We're also footing the bill, and we don't have enough tesserae. So apparently the mill is going to have to wait just a little bit longer. With our pockets considerably emptier than I apparently thought they were, we head back to Crescent Hollow for the night. But Artemis has a surprise waiting for us. While he was out foraging today, he managed to find the last spring forge item we need for the museum. Good boy, Artemis. Unfortunately, by the time we realize what he's brought home, it's too late to make another trip into town. So we'll tuck that away somewhere safe, and tomorrow it's going straight to the museum. Day 18 starts with a few chores around Crescent Hollow before we get back into gathering wood for the mill restoration. We're getting close, but we're still a little short. So after a quick trip to the baths, it's back to chopping. While we're out, we make a stop at the general store to pick up some more seeds before heading home to get them in the ground. And with a little more work around the farm, we finally have all the wood we need. We also managed to catch a moth while we're out, so naturally that goes straight to the museum. And with that little moth, we complete the multi-season insect bundle. Another collection down. Since we've been spending so much time cleaning Crescent Hollow lately, our tools could also use a little love. So we head over to the forge and upgrade both our axe and watering can. Then it's finally time to find Adeline and finish this mill restoration project. We've gathered everything she asked for. We're ready to go. Except I forgot one tiny detail. We're also footing the bill, and we don't have enough tesserae. So apparently the mill is going to have to wait just a little bit longer. With our pockets considerably emptier than I apparently thought they were, we head back to Crescent Hollow for the night. But Artemis has a surprise waiting for us. While he was out foraging today, he managed to find the last spring forge item we need for the museum. Good boy, Artemis. Unfortunately, by the time we realize what he's brought home, it's too late to make another trip into town. So we'll tuck that away somewhere safe, and tomorrow it's going straight to the museum. Day 20 is mostly a farm day. We're officially heading into our final week of spring, so I want to start getting Crescent Hollow ready for the change of season. That means spending some time cleaning things up and getting our fields laid out so we'll be ready for a whole new batch of crops once summer arrives. And there's one other thing I really would like to accomplish before spring ends: chickens. Crescent Hollow needs chickens. But today is also Saturday, so we eventually put down the tools and head into town to check out this week's market. While we're there, I pick up a few things from Mary to continue decorating the house, because apparently I've reached the stage of every farming sim where I finally have a little money and immediately spend it on furniture. No regrets. And after a pretty quiet day of working around the farm, we end the evening by having some tea with Hayden. A little farm work, a little shopping, and some tea with a neighbor. Not every day in Mistria needs to be an adventure. We start day 21 with a very important birthday delivery. It's Luke's birthday, so naturally, we give him a bug. In my defense, he likes bugs. Okay? After turning in a few requests around town, we head over to the carpenter shop because it's finally time to start working towards one of our last goals for spring: chickens. We pick up the blueprint for our first coop, along with a few other bits and bobs for the farmhouse, before heading back to Crescent Hollow. So now we just need to actually build the thing. So we spend the rest of the evening chopping trees and trying to gather all the wood we need for construction. Unfortunately, our stamina gives out before we can collect quite enough, which means the coop will have to wait until tomorrow. But we'll get there, and with day 21 coming to an end, just like that, our third week in Mistria is over. We've got 7 days left before summer arrives. One final week of spring. We wake up on day 22 to a couple of very interesting letters. Island wants us to join him for a new discovery, while Adeline has our next big town project waiting for us. But before we get into any of that, we have a coop to build. After spending most of yesterday gathering materials, we finally get our first coop built at Crescent Hollow, which means we're officially one step closer to chickens. With that very important business taken care of, we head into town to find Island. He meets us outside the manor to show us something he's discovered: a stone stele depicting a legendary set of armor once worn by the Dragonsworn, knights who were sworn to protect the dragons of Mistria. Interesting. When we place our hand on the stone, a hidden compartment suddenly opens, revealing the first piece of the armor, along with the note containing a clue to where we might find the next one. So apparently, we have a little treasure hunt on our hands. We'll definitely be coming back to that. On our way out, Adeline catches us to tell us about Mistria's next restoration project. This time, she wants to beautify the town square. She initially expects it to just be the three of us working on everything, because she feels guilty asking the rest of Mistria for even more help. But as we get to work, people start showing up. One by one, the rest of the town joins in until we're all working together to restore the square and repair the old staircase leading up to the summit. And I'm glad we did, because the view from up here is beautiful. With another piece of Mistria restored, we still have plenty of day left, and there's one more goal I've been wanting to accomplish before spring ends. It's time to head back into the mines. And we make our way down, and finally, floor 20. We did it. Spring goal officially complete. But our celebration doesn't last very long, because when we reach the bottom, we hear that whisper again. And I have a bad feeling about this. There's a strange tablet waiting for us in the middle of the room, covered in writing we can't understand, so we take a rubbing of the text to bring back to Island. Maybe he'll be able to translate it, or at least have something in that enormous collection of books that can help us figure out what it says. Unfortunately, it's already too late to track him down tonight, so our translation escapades will have to wait until tomorrow. We start day 23 by telling Cal about the strange seal we discovered underground. He recognizes it as something once used to control the flow of magic between realms, and believes that breaking it may help restore more of the power he's lost. So, Determined to help Cal, we set off to figure out exactly how we're supposed to open this thing. First stop, Island. We find him in his office at the manor and show him the rubbing we took from the tablet. Unfortunately, even Island can't translate it. He does recognize the language, though. It's called Witch Speak, an ancient language once used when humans and dragons communicated with one another. And I think we know just the witch to ask. So off to the bathhouse we go. Unlike us, Juniper can actually read it, and she's able to tell us exactly what we'll need to break the seal. And luckily, I'm pretty sure I have everything sitting in a chest back at Crescent Hollow. So we run home, gather what we need, and head straight back into the mines. We place each of the items on the pillars surrounding the seal, and it opens. But we're not alone. The specter of a dragon priestess appears before us and asks us to meet her further below. And I don't trust her at all. Before we go chasing mysterious ghosts deeper underground, though, I want to make sure we're prepared. So we spend the rest of the evening in the upper mines gathering copper. My goal is to upgrade the rest of our armor before we start exploring the lower floors. Eventually, we make our way back to Crescent Hollow, where Cal is waiting for us. Breaking the water seal has restored another portion of his power, and as a thank you for helping him, he blesses us with a new spell, Summon Rain, which is going to become very useful as we continue expanding our fields. Cal also tells us that the water seal was only one of 5 scattered throughout the mines. The earthquake seems to have damaged them, allowing just enough magic to begin flowing through Mistria again, and ultimately allowing Cal to awaken after we repaired his shrine. But there's still one pretty important question. Who sealed them in the first place? And why? Cal doesn't remember, which means if we want answers, we're gonna have to keep going. 5 seals. 1 down, and I'm sure all will be revealed in time. It's raining again on day 24, which means we can save our stamina and spend another day in the mines gathering copper for those armor upgrades. But before we head underground, I want to spend a little time working on the paths around Crescent Hollow. Our farm definitely isn't going to be perfect by the end of our first season, and that's okay. It can at least look a little better than it did when we arrived. Once we've made some progress, we head to the baths for a quick stamina refill before making our way back into the upper mines. We're here mostly for copper today, but there's also one forageable from these levels that I'm still missing for the museum. So I'm keeping an eye out for that while we're down here. Unfortunately, no luck, but we come away with plenty of copper, but our exclusive little forageable remains elusive. Well, tomorrow's another day. Day 25 starts with a letter from Adeline asking us to meet her over at the general store. Which can only mean one thing. Our next town project is upon us. And this is one I've been waiting for, because completing it will finally unlock another backpack upgrade. I desperately need those inventory slots, and perhaps equally important, the cute little craftable signs. Priorities. Unfortunately, getting the store upgraded is going to take a lot of materials, so we're definitely not gonna make it by the end of spring. But before I can get too focused on that, I make a slightly impulsive decision. We built that coop for a reason. Crescent Hollow needs chickens. So please welcome the newest member of the farm, Lyra, our very first chicken. Look at her! Of course, I had to continue our celestial naming theme, so our little spotted girl is named after the constellation Lyra. And since apparently today has become spend all of our money on Animals Day, I also pick up a bed and a food bowl for Artemis. I've been watching that poor cat sleep on the floor for almost the entire season, and I can't take it anymore. He deserves a bed. So our general store upgrade may have to wait a little while, but Crescent Hollow officially has its first chicken, and Artemis no longer has to sleep on the floor. Money well spent. We start day 26 gathering more materials for the general store upgrade and manage to drop off all the stone we need. One material down, several more to go. After that, it's back to the mines for some more copper. But we're not spending the entire day underground because it's Friday. And after completely forgetting about Friday night at the inn last week, we're not missing it again. So we make our way over to see what everyone's been up to in our absence. And apparently a lot. Adeline and the rest of the D&D crew are on trial for regicide. Ulrich is still somehow beating everyone at cards. The girls are still fighting. And the kids are still working out their plan to sneak into Baylor's room. Which I really don't think is going to work out the way they think it is. But I guess we'll find out. With ourselves officially caught up on this week's Mistria drama, it's time to head back to Crescent Hollow and call it a night. And somehow, we've made it to the last day of spring. We start our final morning with one last strawberry harvest, and look who else has been growing. Lyra is officially a full-grown chicken. Look at her. Our little baby is all grown up. Speaking of animals, I had another one demanding my attention while I was recording. My cat Orion decided that I had played enough Mistria, and it was actually time to play with him. So please enjoy this brief interruption from my tiny production assistant being adorable. Once Orion decides I'm allowed to return to work, we continue our mission to gather as many of the remaining spring forageables as we can before the season ends. We make one last trip to the museum to drop off a few more donations before heading home to Crescent Hollow. And with that, we've reached the end of our very first spring in Mistria. And with that, our very first spring in Mistria has come to an end. When we arrived at Crescent Hollow 28 days ago, we were handed an overgrown farm, a house that had definitely seen better days, and not much else. And I'll be the first to admit, the farm is still kind of a mess, but it's our mess. There's still plenty of debris to clear, plenty of empty space to fill, and about a million things I want to change. But that's okay. Crescent Hollow doesn't need to be finished after one season. It just needs to be a little better than when we found it. And I think it's getting there. And we've made quite a bit of progress ourselves. We've unlocked every tier 1 skill perk, reached renown level 25, and brought Mistria all the way to Copper Town rank. We've reached level 17 in farming, level 20 in archaeology and blacksmithing, 16 in mining, 14 in woodcrafting, 9 in fishing, 8 in combat, 4 in cooking and ranching. So clearly we did a little bit of everything this summer. Some things more than others. But we've managed to reach at least one heart with almost everyone in Mistria. With Celine, Island, and Juniper already at 2. Saturday market vendors are going to take a little longer since we only see them once a week. And then there's Henrietta. Apparently, I need to remember that Hayden's farm exists. But hey, we're making friends. Underneath Mistria, we've made our way through the first 20 floor of the mines, discovered the first seal, and begun unraveling a mystery that seems much bigger than we first realized. And there are still 80 floors beneath us, so we'll continue our descent when we return for summer. For now, I think Asteria has earned a little rest. Thank you so much for spending our first spring in Mistria with me. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Crescent Hollow, the people of Mistria, and our little corner of this world as much as I have. If you did, I'd love to have you along for summer. But until then, stay curious, stay gaming, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!